Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and we are joined by Lyn Ulbricht, the hard-fighting mother of Ross Ulbricht, of course, who has been kidnapped by the state and thrown in prison for a whole host of things he didn't personally commit. There are a lot of developments in the story, which we will go into soon. But first, Lyn, for those who aren't yet aware, can you explain to our audience the story behind Ross's imprisonment?
Well, I'll try to make it brief because it's very complicated. But in any case, Ross is in prison. The convictions are for charges that are related to his involvement with the Silk Road website, essentially creating it and allegedly running it. And I say allegedly because Ross says he didn't run it the whole time. But in any case, the Silk Road, although it's known as a drug website, it actually was created to protect user privacy and anonymity. And it was up to people on the site what they decided to buy and sell using the cryptocurrency Bitcoin, which very few people had heard of at the time. It was based on a philosophy of voluntary interaction and peaceful interaction. And so there were things that were prohibited and taken down by moderators. Such as there was no child pornography allowed, stolen property wasn't allowed, violent services were not allowed. But pretty much it was an open market where people could decide what they wanted to buy and sell. And so many drugs were exchanged. Mostly user amounts of cannabis was by far the biggest item exchanged. It was about 70% of what made up Silk Road, although it was barely mentioned at trial.
Well, most of these things, of course, are looking at possibly being legalized in a lot of places anyway. And just looking at the way that the media responds to the story and the way that we see largely the mainstream media acting as if Ross was some kind of Pablo Escobar kind of figure when it was just an open market. It's so absurd. But I wanted to get into this with you because last month, the Supreme Court denied Ulbricht's petition for a writ of certiorari, a ruling that prevented him from appealing his life sentence. What on earth happened there?
Well, once you get to the Supreme Court, you're talking about broad-reaching issues. They don't get into your case per se. So the two issues that were presented to the Supreme Court by Ross and his legal team, who were fantastic, was one, is it a violation of the Fourth Amendment for the government to search and seize our internet browsing history and activity without a warrant? And the other issue was, does it violate the Sixth Amendment's right to a jury trial for a judge to sentence someone based on something that was never charged at trial, never ruled on by a jury, just something she's decided is what she thinks is true and should be applied? And, the Sixth Amendment was written to prevent this kind of thing and to protect the accused from judges who decide they know better than a jury or that they go around a jury. So those are the two issues. We thought they were going to take the Fourth Amendment issue because they didn't reject Ross in the first pass. And even the Solicitor General said, hold it pending this other Fourth Amendment case called Carpenter versus U.S. And depending on how they rule at Carpenter, if it was favorable, then Ross could have been sent back to the Second Circuit for a reevaluation of what to do with him, whether to give him a new trial or what. And Carpenter was ruled unfavorably, so we were really happy about that. But the opinion written by Chief Justice Roberts was a very narrow one. So it was like, this ruling is not about anything but a cell phone in this case. It wasn't, didn't expand to, say, a laptop, as in Ross's case, even though laptops and cell phones are both computers, and really the same principles should apply of protection of our privacy. So they denied Ross's petition, and with that, his options for direct appeal are ended.
Wow. Well, there's been so much happening in the news lately regarding Ross. I can't help but notice that it seems to be almost overwhelming. There's one thing after another every single day. I see something new popping up. I know he's been putting out a few messages on Twitter recently, reaching out to people, which is great. But I wanted to ask, because there was recently, there's been a push to drop charges against Ross regarding murder for hire. Can you go into the development a bit and the corruption of those involved in the initial investigation?
Yes, there was only ever one charge or indictment that included the charge of murder for hire. The New York prosecution dropped those. They were in the criminal complaint, and then they dropped them. They didn't put them in the indictment. They never charged them at trial. It was never part of the trial or the convictions. And it's pretty ridiculous to read people go, oh well, he's in prison for murder. I'm like, well, first of all, no one was murdered, but secondly, even murder for hire, no, that's not one of the charges. So that's total misinformation. But there was a remaining charge in an indictment, well, actually a superseding indictment and an indictment in Maryland, where it happens that there was rampant corruption on the part of at least two federal agents who are now in prison and had the run of the site, the ability to act as the main administrator, Dread Pirate Roberts, or lots of other aliases. They had the keys to passwords, PIN numbers. They could change chats, all kinds of things that were on the server. And this was never allowed to be known to the jury. The jury had no idea that these guys were all over the site. They have admitted it, and they're now in prison. So anyway, the evidence of murder for hire in Maryland was based on evidence given by one of those agents, Carl Mark Force. So to me, it's dubious anyway. But just recently, the other day, the attorney in Maryland filed to just dismiss those charges, and I believe it was today that the judge signed that, meaning it's done. And actually, it's without prejudice, which means they can't later refile it. It's done. It's put to rest. Finally, after almost 5 years of keeping Ross under this cloud of accusations of murder for hire.
What do you think that'll do for his case inevitably next time it comes around? Do you think this will help get him out far earlier than what they were claiming that he'd be in prison until?
Well, the only shots we have are clemency from the president, so a commutation of his sentence, and I think probably not having an indictment against you would help. Mm-hmm. I think having an indictment against you pending would hurt, so that's good. It also, there is a kind of a long shot thing that you can do in the court in about a year called a habeas petition, and I think that it's good that it's not, active for that, as well as potentially in the Bureau of Prisons, how they treat him, because I think they were considering, my impression was, and I was told that they were considering this allegation as part of why he needed to be in a maximum security prison with violent people. However, because he got put in that category of violent, even though it wasn't proven or even convicted. I don't know, though, because I think in general, there's a lot of peaceful people in where he is, mostly drug offenders. So I don't know if that would help him, because he still has a life sentence.
Well, it's so absurd seeing, pedophiles and rapists and murderers in there for less time than a man who allegedly opened up this free market kind of situation where people had privacy and were able to interact freely. I mean, it's such a peaceful thing. What other people do on that platform is up to them. It's kind of like sending car manufacturers to jail because someone ran someone over with a car on purpose, or sending, the creator of the internet to jail because of all the horrible things that people have done. It's just so absurd.
But, and like you said, this kingpin, they try to paint Ross as this kingpin thug. I don't think there's too many kingpins who care about voluntary interaction or worry about the use of force.
Yeah,
it's like, give me a break. But that was just used, that has its own life sentence because he got double life. Yeah. The other life sentence was a conspiracy to traffic narcotics. Not that he did it. They're not saying he dealt drugs to anyone. or, fake IDs or hacking software, any of that. It's all conspiracy charges, which is a real issue in our criminal justice system because the government uses conspiracy to put a lot of people in prison who haven't actually done the things that it was supposedly a conspiracy to do. That along with some other things that, like informants who have every incentive to lie. And, there's all kinds of reasons people are doing sometimes life sentences for very flimsy evidence.
Yeah, absolutely. By the same logic of putting Ross in prison, they might as well throw landlords in prison if someone deals drugs on the property out of their apartment, or, throw everyone in government in prison because someone, broke a law within the confines of the country. It's just, where do you draw the line? It's just so absurd. But I wanted to ask you, with the overwhelming majority of people supporting Ross's freedom, something I optimistically believe is inevitable. Recently, there has been a petition circulating by yourself and others, signed by tens of thousands of people to free Ross. This is in hopes of a presidential pardon after Trump pardoned the Hammonds recently. What do you think of this revival of public outcry and support for Ross, and where do you think it could lead?
First, let me just say one thing. You're very smart about the landlord argument because Ross's lawyer actually made that exact argument. So just so you know, you have a good legal mind. But no, the petition's it's going to be this evening, will be 2 weeks that I posted it. It's over 40,000 signatures. So it's been a tremendous outpouring, and it's so encouraging to me, but especially to Ross, that so many people, look, you don't have to think Ross is a good guy or that you can be against what he represents to you. But look at that sentence. It sets a terrible precedent. It's double life plus 40 years for a first-time young offender with no prior history. First offender, no violence. No violence. And to give him double life plus 40 years is just evil. And it's a problem in our country. There's so much excessive sentencing that people the prison population has metastasized 800% since the drug war, and life sentences have quintupled. This is terrible what's happening, and that's why the United States leads the world in incarcerated people. This is the land of the free, right? So even if people don't agree with everything that they think Ross did or not, the sentence itself should be enough to please sign it and share it. Because I think that essentially, I think a petition's almost like a PR statement where it's saying, look, here's my goal is 500,000. So let's say here's 500,000 people who are asking you to please consider commuting Ross's sentence, this draconian, barbaric sentence that is setting a precedent for other people's sentences. And I'm very hopeful with this, the initial launch that we can get 500,000 people. It's a lot, but I'm hopeful.
Yeah, absolutely. This is nothing less than legalized kidnapping, what has happened to your son. And of course, for those that want to sign the petition, we will leave the petition in the description and the comments below. So make sure to sign that petition. This is important. Get that word out. But I wanted to ask you, Lyn, how is Ross responding to this outpour of support that we're seeing? Because I mean, is he aware of how many people support him and his freedom?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're working on, actually a friend of his is printing out a lot of the comments because there's a place to put comments on the petition to send to him, and he got a bunch of them, and he tweeted about it, actually said how, encouraged and uplifted he was by it. I mean, you're very cut off in prison, and Ross, unlike other inmates, doesn't even have email. So he's very cut off. And so to know that people are out there and haven't forgotten him, because you feel forgotten. And that's one reason I relocated, to be near him so he could get regular visits, when others can't be there, I'm there, so he could have that lifeline, because so many prisoners don't. And so it's very uplifting to Ross to know that people are standing by him and that they're taking a step to help him become free.
So, Lyn, if you don't mind me asking, looking into the camera, if President Trump was watching right now, what would you say to him?
I would say, President Trump, we're begging you for mercy. to a young man who meant no harm and who is not convicted of any violence and is a first-time offender for something that he did created when he was 26 years old. And a double life sentence plus 40 years is draconian, and it's very political. There's a lot of ramifications to it. Please look into it, and please consider commuting Ross's sentence. He has stated to the court he will never break the law once he's out. He will do everything he can to be a constructive member of society and contribute, and he's a lot to contribute. So please consider commuting his sentence. Please commute Ross Ulbricht's sentence.
Absolutely. So, Lyn, you're an incredibly strong woman, one of the strongest and most vigilant people I've had the pleasure of meeting. I really appreciate your time. Can you tell our audience how they can help support freeing Ross and where they can go to learn and get more involved?
Well, freeross.org is our hub. It's got a big banner that you can click, goes right to the petition. And there's other ways to help as well. Really, my main concern right now is clemency. So this is our chance, and it's the right thing. And I'm hoping that his sentence will be commuted, and this will help others. I think I would like to see all nonviolent people in prison pardoned, frankly, it's a barbaric way to deal with crime. And so in any case, please go to our website, freeross.org, and from there you can follow me on social media. That's really helpful. Retweet me and like our Free Ross community page and just spread the word. There's still this narrative out there that's very negative. I understand some people's concerns. I'm not even defending Silk Road. I'm just saying no matter what, this sentence is un-American and frankly draconian, and it needs to be commuted. So please help us get that done. And you don't have to, I know you're Canadian, Josh, you do not have to be an American to sign it. Anybody in the world can sign it. There's a drop-down box for location, and just find your country. It should be a worldwide grassroots effort.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. freeross.org. And, this, in the end, this comes down to an issue of conscience. How can any of us apathetically and freely sit here free, out of prison, able to do anything we want in our life for the most part, and sit here and know that there's a man who hurt nobody, didn't do anything wrong, in his 20s, sent to prison for such an incredibly long time? It's just unthinkable. There's that saying, they came for the Jews and I said nothing because I was not a Jew. They came for, and the rest of the saying, and it goes and goes until there's no one left to speak for you. And if this can happen to Ross, it can happen to you, it can happen to anyone for the most absurd circumstances. And this is one of those incredibly absurd circumstances, to be thrown in a cage for the rest of your life. We must do whatever we can, be diligent, be vigilant, and make sure to stand up for Ross, for, again, who will stand up for us when it comes down to it. So thank you so much for going with us, Lyn. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson with Lyn Ulbricht signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. Like what you see here, OM? Don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we are so overwhelmingly demonetized by YouTube as they bring in the ADL to flag all of our content as hate speech. Also check our Bitcoin address in the description as well as on the screen for you to scan if you please. And also check us out at Steemit at Josh Sigurdson, the future of social media, where you get paid in the upvote of your post in cryptocurrency, Steem that is. So don't forget to check us out there, and find us at Anarchapulco 2019. I know it's early, but this is such an exciting event coming up with Ron Paul, Judge Napolitano, David Icke, Larkin Rose, Jeff Berwick, all the usual characters, and it's going to be amazing. So we hope to see you there. Make sure to check the link for Anarchapulco below and use promo code WHAM to save as much as 15% on your tickets. We hope to see you there. But until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.